Okay, everyone, this is my spoiler review of X-Men the Animated Series, Season 4, Episode 3, Sanctuary Part 1. This originally came out October 21st, 1995. Now, we haven't seen Magneto in a while in this show, and every time he's in the show, it's some of the best episodes, and that continues here. We see it opens with the United Nations freaking out because these satellites have gone missing, and so have these mutant scientists. But we know from the beginning clip that this has to do with Magneto because of the magnetism bringing them down. And we see that the Genosha delegate rejects the term slavery, and he says mutant powers are a resource to be managed like any other. This is when Magneto has this amazing entrance through the ceiling, and he says the mutant race will no longer be managed, Mr. Delegate. And I love when the delegate tries to run away, he just traps him in metal and brings him back to his seat. And he has this iconic line where he says, "Ladies, gentlemen, you have been chosen to witness the announcement of a momentous event in the history of our planet. The liberation of mutant kind has begun." This just gives you goosebumps as an X-Men fan. And for me, Magneto is one of my favorite characters, and this is so awesome, this whole sequence with him. And I love seeing Magneto hovering visually and having his helmet hovering next to him. That was so cool. And it's hysterical. He just pulls down a projector that happens to be having all this footage of the best of the mutant hate that's happened in the show. And what's cool about this, he does show how good the X-Men have been to humans and how humans have only repaid them poorly. And this is where he introduces Asteroid M, and you get to see Apocalypse and Mr. Sinister are seeing his speech on their television screens, which is also pretty funny. And at this idea of Asteroid M, a bunch of mutants flock to go there. And we even get to see Gambit is in doubt about staying on Earth because he says they're fighting all the time and things aren't getting much better. And he goes, "Just thinking out loud, che. You know, Gambit follow you anywhere." I love that line, and it's good to see more Gambit because I feel like he's kind of thinned out in this show in general. I really love the writing of the conflict of Asteroid M and how it relates to the world and how Professor X is kind of managing it, especially in the scene where X tells President Kelly to stand down, but he's like, "I got people worried," and Magneto says he has missiles for defense. How can I trust that's the use? But he gives 12 hours for X to talk to Magneto. So it's just a good way to lay out this whole episode and make every party involved important and interesting. And it's interesting that X doesn't want to bring the full X-Men team because he's like, "I don't want to provoke Magneto." He's like, "It's a peace mission, not combat." That's also what I love about Professor X, is his way of being able to think like that, not always fighting. Now I see Gambit says he's coming along and he promises he'll come back, but you see Rogue is worried, so that gets you worried as an audience too, if where is Gambit really want to eventually be at the end of the day. Now, they go to find Magneto at his meeting point to pick up a bunch of mutants in Africa, and this is where Professor X will get to talk to Magneto, and he says his mutant nation will solve nothing, it's just putting people on military alert and making them scared. And it's great because Magneto's like, human anxiety is not my concern. He's like, "Now we got to go to Genosha," and he's like, "Where humans and mutants work together," where he says sarcastic to Professor X. And we get a great cameo here of Black Panther, which was really cool to see in this show. Also, a cameo again this episode is of Copycat. The reason I'm shouting that specific character out is it's Vanessa from Deadpool, so make sure to check out my interview I just did with the actress Morena Baccarin. I'll link that at the end of the video. We talk a little bit about Deadpool 3. Now, Magneto will take these pods of mutants to Genosha, but Professor X will notice that he is tiring while he is doing this. So this is going to be important to set up what goes on later in the episode with Cortez, which we're going to get to. But this is where when they get to Genosha, it sets up this awesome battle sequence because you see this whole Genosha army come out, not letting Magneto just free all these mutants. But in the process, he frees, we're just talking about Cortez and the Acolytes. And you see they were ready to serve him. They're calling him Lord Magneto. And what I love about this sequence is you see how clearly these mutants are going to destroy this human army. But what makes it more fair of a fight is that the Sentinels come. And it was just amazing seeing Cortez heal Magneto, which we know later on he's just recharging him, but being able to take down all these Sentinels was such a cool scene, just seeing Magneto versus Sentinels. I just was like loving it. But we'll see when they get to Asteroid M that Magneto is weak again, and Cortez says he's healing him, but this is where Beast is the one who realizes he's just charging him, and Professor X fears he will depend on it like a drug. So just so many layers to this episode with things like that that make it so fascinating to me and one of the best of this show. Now, we see Magneto invited human astronauts to join them for dinner. And this is like where Cortez is pissed. So you knew from Cortez's reaction they were setting him up to be a villain. And we get to see Magneto in his jammies here and a little chest hair. But in this moment, someone attacks them with missiles, and Cortez is like, punish them back. Don't just defend. But the big twist here is that they launched the missile first, their side. So Magneto's like, tell Kelly no further aggression on our part. Now, the big twist at the end of the episode is Cortez launched the warhead, and Magneto calls him out. He knew it was him at that moment, but this is where Cortez renounces Magneto, takes his powers back, and he's like, I have sustained you and I can destroy you. You do not have enough powers to hold your own molecules together. Soon you will fade away into nothing, which was crazy because we see Magneto's hand looks like Marty McFly's hand in Back to the Future fading away. And he just shoots Magneto away in a pod, and then he pins that on the X-Men. So it's a brilliant villain plan here and makes Cortez an impressive villain here. I love how they wrote this. And that's the big ending of the episode, but I do want to hit on when Professor X runs into Amelia Vogt. And we get the backstory of Amelia from Beast explaining to Gambit. And he says Amelia was X's nurse and they fell in love, but the professor's dream of the X-Men drove them apart. I was so happy to see the classic X-Men again, but really get to see them this time fighting in the Danger Room. I thought that was great. But what's interesting about her story, though, she hated so much being a mutant and wanted just a private life with Professor X, but he couldn't give up that dream of the X-Men and his purpose. And a part of him died when he lost her. So it is a tragic story for him. And she lays into Charles when she sees him on Asteroid M, telling him your fight for mutant rights made Asteroid M necessary. So really harsh there, but really interesting. And it's a great part one, this whole episode. I really enjoyed it. Honestly, I think it might sound crazy, but I'm giving this one a 9.6. I think it's maybe my favorite episode of the show so far. I think the pace is amazing. I think Magneto just elevates every episode he's in, but this is the best we've seen of Magneto yet in the show. Really good moments with Professor X, and it's really well written how they introduce Cortez and how Cortez goes through with his plan. It's a perfect way to end a part one that makes you excited for part two, and the concept of Asteroid M is really cool and really cool action. I mean, that battle on Genosha was insane, and having the Sentinels appear was awesome, and the Black Panther cameo is so cool as well. I'm giving this one a 9.6. Let me know what you thought of it down below. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. Hit that sub button. I'm trying to really boost up this channel. It's all things X-Men, so you're not going to want to miss any X-Men stuff, and I'll see you next time.